If you've been watching this channel for a while, you'll know I focus on spectacular space games, cockpits, planets, all that lovely stuff, the kind of space games that can be visually very immersive indeed. This video is not that. Almost everything I'm about to show you is 2D, top-down, flat, and I know that for some of you that's already a reason to reach for the next video to click away and move on. But before you do, please give me at least 90 seconds here, because here's the thing I've come to believe about these games. And it's the whole reason I wanted to make this video. The pretty space games, the ones I usually cover, the ones I love, spend an enormous amount of their effort on the screen. How things look and all of that, of course, is absolutely wonderful. But what I've got here for you today is a bunch of games that put almost everything into a simulation. And yes, there's a couple of 3D examples toward the end of the video and one outlier as well. But what we're going to be looking at here is what happens underneath these 2D flat little games. And in fact, there's nothing little about them. These are some of the best space games out there. So keep in mind then that all of these games here are deeper, cleverer, more alive than they might first appear in just 5 seconds of looking at the footage. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So this is Cosmoteer, and it's an absolute classic for what's going on under the hood, the sort of things you can see of what's going on. So you can have the crew, for example. You can see all your crew running around your ship. And they aren't just there merely for decoration, they're not just there to be superficial. Here, a crew member, an NPC, might well be carrying ammo from the factory and carrying it all the way to a gun that needs to be using it. And they do that by hand. By the same token, batteries are carried from the reactor to every single system that needs them. And all of this is something quite brilliant going on here, because how fast a cannon can fire, how long your shield can hold up, depends entirely on how quickly your crew can physically deliver supplies to it. Your corridors then, these are logistic networks, aren't they? You make them too long, you're going to cause yourself some problems in the long run. I mean, put your ammo supply at one end of the ship and your weapons at the other, then those guns are going to get quite starved, aren't they? Now, when an enemy blows a hole in your corridor, things actually start getting really interesting, because if your crew happen to be running down that corridor at that moment, you can actually watch them scramble to find another route while the gun they were feeding starts falling silent because it's starved for ammo. So this is the type of simulation that's genuinely really deep, and it's quite exciting to play. And you can actually see all of it happening out instantly because, well, this is a top-down perspective, isn't it? You don't have to be in a big 3D corridor where you can only see limited things at a time. And I think this is great because it acts as proof that whilst 2D might look simple on the surface, it can actually be far more complex underneath. Another thing to keep in mind is that all of these games are on sale right now in the Steam Summer Sale, so if you're interested in any of them, do check them out. Some of them have a pretty hefty discount. Moving on, we come to Space Haven. Now this one released into version 1, next in early access relatively recently, but it's already got a pretty decent discount. Very popular game at the moment, a lot of people are liking it. And yeah, this is a spaceship colony sim. You build the ship tile by tile and you keep a ragtag crew alive whilst doing so. And also, you got to be aware that every single tile is completely simulated within the game. That means oxygen, CO2, temperature, toxic gases, power, pretty much everything that can be on a ship has to actually be simulated. And if any of this goes wrong, then, well, your ship can go wrong, your colony can go wrong. It does cause you problems. Think for a moment what might happen if a pirate puts a railgun through Deck C. That one hit blows a hull breach, so your air starts venting into space, but it also starts a fire. The fire spreads, releasing toxic gases throughout your ship, and the power to that section then cuts out, so the oxygen pumps die as well. So your crew rush to patch that breach, but they have to find a path around the spreading fire to actually get there. And meanwhile, the people in that section are starting to suffocate. So what happens is you end up with this cascading situation where one little problem, one hit, leads to a breach, then fire, then gas, then that suffocation, all of these cascading out of each other. The impressive thing, all of this can happen dynamically within the game. It doesn't actually have to be scripted. Like I say then, this game hit version 1 this year, and that was after around 700,000 players actually helped shape it. So yeah, an impressive game and a pretty popular one. Again, very nicely discounted on Steam at the moment as well. Now we come to Starcom. So this one's a little bit lighter because not all of these games are out to murder your entire crew. Starcom anyway, what was I talking about? Starcom, Unknown Space. This, to all intents and purposes, is a top-down space exploration RPG, and it does have some depth, which when you think about it makes sense, as there are over 230 handmade anomalies within the game, and each of these have been individually written and illustrated. They're all scattered across 100 plus star systems, and your goal is to build a ship as you go on a hex grid and turn that tiny little scout ship into whatever you really fancy. That could be an explorer, a missile boat, an armoured cruiser. Ultimately, it seems people really kind of called this the 2D Star Trek game that we never got. You see that comment, variations on that dotted around the internet quite a bit. And it seems to me that is exactly right. There's very few space games out there that are truly about exploration in the Star Trek classic sense. That is, going out into deep space and discovering these mysterious anomalies. Moving on, we come to one of the most complex games in this video, and I think it's worth being upfront about that. The game is Solar Expanse, and here you run a space company, and the simulation underneath all of this has real orbital mechanics. That means everything is moving here: planets, moons, asteroids, everything you might expect to. So when you plan launches around actual transfer windows, that means you need to think about gravity slingshots to fling your craft further out into space. And that's exactly how this works, both in the real world as well as in titles like Kerbal Space Program and now Kitten Space Agency. In terms of what's going on in the game, you might find yourself with a few different scenarios. For example, a piece of tech that bolts onto an engine onto an asteroid and then uses the asteroid's own mass as fuel to slowly push it across the solar system. And then you can mine the water asteroid and drop it onto Mars to help terraform it. So obviously that is a really complex mission, but the fact that Solar Expanse supports this is what makes this game stand out. Now, obviously this does take time. That's a mission in-game that might take 1 to 3 years of in-game time to actually pay off. That's not real-world time, obviously, but if you're into complexity, then that is the way to go. Now, obviously, Solar Expanse isn't a 2D game, it is 3D, but I think some people may say that some of the visuals here are a bit more on the simple side. My entire point, though, is that you shouldn't let that distract you from the complexity that's underneath. Now, moving on, we come to Starsector. This one is not on Steam. It's not in the Steam sale, obviously, because it's not on Steam, but this is a game that I've played quite a bit, and I do really enjoy it. And every time I make a space video, you'll notice in the comment section below someone asking me to include this in the video, so here it is. So if we think about Cosmoteer that I mentioned at the start of the video, with its depth and its logistics, Starsector is all about its combat in many ways, which is some of the best in the entire genre. And it runs on this one really beautiful idea called flux. And that means that everything your ship does actually does generate something called flux. Firing weapons makes flux, blocking a hit with your shields turns that damage into flux, and if your flux fills all the way up, you get overloaded. And for up to 15 seconds then, your shields drop, your weapons die, and you sit there completely helpless. So you need to, accumulate or spend your flux very, very carefully. Combat then is very complex in the Starsector. But here's the thing, the combat is just one small part of the overall game. There's a living economy. Every colony in Starsector is running a real simulated market, and you can trade legally and pay the tariff or run contraband on the black market and deal with the heat when you get searched. There's also a whole faction politics layer. That means 7 powers who hold grudges against you as well as each other. They can go to war, they will hire you as a commissioned auxiliary if your reputation's high enough, and then there's the deep space exploration out in the procedural fringe with areas that are full of derelicts, ancient ruins, and leftover hostile AI fleets guarding the best salvage. And eventually, you can stop wandering and settle. You find a planet that you survey, you found your own colony, you manage its stability and industry, and become a faction of your own. So Starsector is quite probably the most complex space game in this video, and arguably I think a good case could be made that it's possibly one of the most complex space games in existence. But I don't want to end the video just there, because I've spent the whole video talking about complex space games and how you shouldn't really judge them by how they look. And I want to end the video on something completely different. I'm going to contradict myself here, because here's Exo One. So Exo One has almost no simulation in it at all. There's no logistics, no flux, no cascading disasters. You simply pilot an alien craft that rolls and glides and soars. It manipulates gravity to build momentum across these vast, silent, beautiful alien worlds, and all the while heading towards a light on the horizon. And that's it. And it's one of the most stunning things you can play right now. There's the other side of what I'm trying to say here. Yes, we started with these flat 2D games that hide extraordinary complexity behind a flat surface, and that's absolutely wonderful. Sometimes though, the game isn't just deep. That's not always what makes it good. It can just be beautiful, and that's also a great thing too. All of these games are on sale right now in the Steam Summer Sale, with of course the exception of Starsector, which you can find on its very own page. I'll make sure to link all of these in the video description. Do check them out. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen right here. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.